Hello, what's up everyone? Today I just wanted to make a quick video. So, normally these videos aren't watched by nobody. Just look at more than 90% of my videos. They don't have any views. The only two that have views or the most watched are a tutorial and a video that I made like years ago about the announcement of the Apple Vision Pro. But whatever, I just felt the urge to make this video just to talk about what I'm going to talk about today. So yeah, let's go right away. So before I actually start to talk about the topic that I want to talk about, I just wanted to reflect on something that happened a few days ago. It was that I basically had a reunion with some friends, and you know, we're having normal reunion type stuff. But then at some point, I don't know why it came from my. I don't know why I thought about this, but we had 4 hours left. They were gonna leave like 4 hours, in 4 hours. So basically, I remember the scenery perfectly. We were all in our phones, and we were talking here and there, and I was like, give me that shit. Obviously, I told him, hey, I think we should just really talk. I didn't say that, but I was thinking about that, and I was like, just asking a question. I just asked an initial question, and then after that, I was like, you know what? Let's actually have a real conversation. So give me your phones, including mine, and I just put them somewhere else. And I was basically having we basically had a genuine conversation, and this conversation was basically about the meaning of why we are here. If I can summarize it in a way, it's basically asking them, I guess, each one of us about our life, and based on the experience that we have had throughout our lives, what do we think is our purpose if we have found it? Obviously, because the majority of people our age, I'm 18 years old as of 2026, as of May 2026, the majority of people do not really have an answer towards what is the purpose of my life at this age. And I was genuinely curious because, like, I thought about that a few years ago before having that conversation, and I was just subconsciously thinking about it in different ways, and I guess that was a pretty helpful exercise in order for me to really test my understanding, or test my actual, or test everything that I have talked about, that I have thought about, primarily self-consciously, but also, consciously here and there. So I literally just, it was basically asking ourselves that the following question, which is, after 18 years of just having experienced existence and life, have we actually found what is the meaning of all of this? Or maybe a much more simpler question to ask, what is our purpose? And I was really curious. I was like really curious about what my friends will say, because I rarely ask those questions, and I was like, I'm genuinely curious. So yeah, we basically asked each other those questions, and I'm not gonna talk about the what they said. Just general summary. One friend told me that his purpose in life, and he had it very clear, which was pretty cool. But it was definitely not expect. I was definitely not expecting that. He basically has found that his life purpose is basically knowing what happens after death. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, because I was like, bro, for 2,000 years, every single human, the smartest humans alive, hadn't found an answer yet. It's a very interesting philosophy that he talked about, because it's not necessarily that thing that I just said, but it's also getting into that direction. So I don't know. I definitely should. I definitely should make a video with him, because it will be a pretty interesting conversation to share, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about, I don't want to talk over them, over their ideas. So I'm just going to talk about mine and what I answered. And I don't know why I felt the urge to make this video. Like, I just felt the urge to have these thoughts preserved in some computer somewhere, in some server. So yeah, basically what my answer was, obviously here's the actual answer, but I started the answer with two branches from that actual main thing. And those two are the following ones. First, try to be as useful as I can, as useful as I possibly can towards humanity. And second, try to enjoy life and enjoy my existence as much as possible. I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, wait a minute, that sounds like two completely opposite things. And the reason why you might be right is because whenever you look at the human beings that are arguably and objectively the most useful for humanity, and another way to say that is the ones that add the most value to humanity, they tend to not really enjoy life as much. Obviously, this is pretty personal because, like, specifically talking about the second thing that I just said, which is the enjoyment of life. That is pretty personal. Some people enjoy life in different ways, but like it's generally agreed upon the fact that the human beings that have existed, or the ones that are currently existing right now, that are just the most useful or just maximizing their utility toward humanity, tend to be the ones that generally do not enjoy life as much. I know enjoyment of life depends on each person, but I guess all of you all understand what I mean. And because they don't generally tend to enjoy life, right? Like, to give you some examples, I guess the only example that I can think of as right now is Elon Musk. Like, whether you like him, whether you love him or hate him, it is undeniable, absolutely undeniable, that he's one of the most useful human beings existing right now, and one of the most productive, one of the most valuable. Arguably, I will say, in my opinion, he's the top in terms of adding value to humanity right now. Like, he's just the one that is adding the most value. And I guess for you to understand what do I mean by that, like, you gotta look at his entire story, what he has done, and really try to strive for a very objective way to look at it. Because obviously, after 2024, let's just say propaganda has, grown exponentially on him, for either for to support him or to tear him apart. And it's not only what he has done, but what he's planning to do. Colonizing the moon, colonizing Mars. Bro, he's just doing so much. Whatever. I pick him as an example because he's definitely hitting my first goal like crazy. Like, he's at the top in that front right now, and he's just getting started, but whatever. But in the second one of trying to enjoy life as much as possible, that's where it really gets tricky. And this doesn't get tricky in the sense that he's very likely not enjoying life because he's fully focusing on the first one, but on the fact that it's tricky because enjoying life is different for different people. Like, there's people that picture themselves, like, there's people that for them enjoyment of life means being in vacations all day on the beach drinking pina coladas. There's other people that think that where they generally enjoy working and all they do is work because they not only do work for whatever they want to do, but they also enjoy it. So it's really personal. But with Elon, he definitely, I mean, he has said this publicly. Like, I think he's definitely doesn't enjoy himself a lot, and I think he has said this publicly simply because, the primary thing of adding value and being useful and whatnot, which obviously there's a reason for it. I'm not gonna talk about it because it's not a video analysis of Elon. That could be another video, but he generally prioritizes that first goal that I'm talking about, which is, well, that goal that I'm talking about over enjoyment. So for me, well, that's why it's tricky, because it is indeed tricky. Like, if you want to be as useful as you can and add as much value as possible to humanity, but also at the same time enjoy yourself and just enjoy life and your existence as much as possible, is very tricky. And obviously depends, for the second, what do you mean by enjoyment of life? In my case, it's definitely things beyond just pure working. So that's why I say it's tricky. I mean, enjoyment of life definitely is gonna be mostly work, because like from the 18 years that I have lived in this on Earth, when I work and build and add value to other humans in some way that is interesting to me, I enjoy it a lot. But I also enjoy other things that are not that. I mean, I will say it's basically 80-20. I think 80% I enjoy it. Like, enjoyment of life to me looks like 80% actually working on the first one, which is adding as much value to humanity as possible, and then the 20% is something that is not that, is something else, some other stuff. And obviously that actually looks very different from people, right? People won't go to the like going to the beach and just chilling. In my case, I think that is boring. I prefer things that just keep you active, right? Like activities, literally, instead of just chilling there with pina colada. I mean, I don't know. It's just not my type of enjoyment. And I guess I really think about really crazy ideas for enjoyment. Like, I don't really go to parties a lot, and I'm not really a big party guy in terms of consistency of going to parties, but whenever I go to a party, bro, I fucking give it my all, bro. Like, I'm just fully focused on the party and I'm just dancing all day, bro. I also, at some point in my life, I want to throw the biggest party ever. So I guess, and also, like, I'm just giving very, you know, maybe silly examples, right? For example, whenever I go to a concert, the last concert that I went through, which was from The Weekend, I never used my phone, like literally never. The footage that I uploaded or shared with friends was footage from other people, and I just fully enjoyed it. Like, I just try to maximize the enjoyment, and I guess basically to the max. I guess the 20% that I'm talking about to me is things that are about doing something and just basically, I guess the way I described it when I was with my friends was basically leaning into the human stuff to the max. What do I mean by that? whether we like it or not, we are humans, right? I am a human, and whether we like it or not, I mean, I am a human, and that means that we are all the time influenced by our biology, right? From all the billions of years of evolutionary biology that has led us to this, we are all influenced by that all the time. Emotions, like, I mean, emotions, obviously, but also maybe cognitive biases or just needs that are intrinsic to the human being. Like, for example, the need to socialize, the need to have romantic relationships, for example, the need to obviously eat. I mean, obviously, talking about all the basic necessities of Maslow's pyramid, but beyond those, you know, socializing, one of them, like just having emotions, right? Just going through the emotions of things, being excited, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, you can have a lot of things that where you can go through that. I don't know. I think I really need to refine my thinking on this. But I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is that a big part of enjoying life for me is just leaning into those things that make us human, right? Because we cannot just avoid them. Like, for example, with socializing, well, I would love to just have throw big ass parties, bro. Or I don't know, really try to meet as much people as possible, talk to them. Like, that is an example, right? So yeah, basically, I have so many crazy ideas, bro. I want to do skydiving one day. I want to go to the moon. This place, and yeah, that's gonna be definitely. I want to go. I want to. It will be pretty crazy to throw a concert like in the moon. So yeah, I'm gonna. Not I want to. I'm going to go to the moon because like I think everything is aligning perfectly for that to happen. Obviously, not in my end, but you know, governments. The U.S. versus China competing, private companies competing. But yeah, whatever. I'm getting off the rails. Yeah, I just want to do a lot of stuff, and that 20% that's of enjoyment, obviously, that is separated from the actual working and whatnot, that is serving the first purpose is, I guess, how can I explain and my way of enjoying life? I guess I don't know, but yeah, they're definitely difficult to navigate, but I think it's definitely not impossible. I think it's possible. So that's my two things. But whatever. Here's the thing. Those are the two branches from the main thing. Now, what is the main thing? And this is where talking to my friends really made me polish that thing, because like these two branches stuff, I think I have had them for like 2 years now, where I was like, damn, this is really my two main objectives in life. But the pinnacle of that, where these two things branch out, that is something that I have thought about. I haven't had very certain, but now I think it's becoming more clear. And I guess me explain it right now. So that pinnacle is just trying to better understand what the fuck is happening. So yeah, you may be thinking, what do you mean by that? Yeah, right. Great question. So I'm just really trying to understand what it's all about. Why? I mean, the typical questions, right? Why are we here? Where do we come from? What is even this reality that we live in about? Like, I guess I really just want to get closer to that. Just knowing what the hell is going on in this reality. Where did we come from? Why to everything? Why and what and why and how and all that stuff. But I guess if I wanted to summarize it in a better way, is just try to better understand our reality. Simple as that. And now you might be thinking, okay, great, that sounds pretty good. But how the fuck does better understand our reality connect to being as useful and as valuable as it can be to humanity and trying to enjoy life as much as possible? Great question. So let me first talk about the connection between this and enjoying life. In this case, it's pretty simple. At the end of the day, I'm human. I know that I'm mortal. I'm unfortunately not immortal. I don't know. I haven't decided on that yet. I don't know if it's a fortunate thing or an unfortunate thing to do, to have. Definitely unfortunate that we live pretty short time. Maybe immortal is, something pretty different, but at least, I don't know, man, 150 years? Whatever. So yeah, the I think there's not that much connection in there. I think it's just the fact that something happens, we don't know what, after death, but you definitely do not, or I mean, we don't even know, but it's very likely that you just do not continue to function in this reality. So enjoy life, you know. Now, the actual connection that where there's an actual answer is the one of trying to add as much value as possible, as much value as possible to humanity, and trying to just understand everything. And I guess here's the thing: just think about everything that humanity knows so far about reality. Just think about it. This, like, we know quite a lot. Now you may be thinking, well, we don't really know that much because there's so much out there. But I know, I understand. But just think about this. Think about the volumetric space of reality that we humans occupy, which is basically this. Let me actually go to Google Earth just to better explain my thinking here. Just think about the actual volumetric space that humanity utilizes from reality. It's literally just this. Like, I guess, Earth's core. I guess this is a better way to define it, right? This is Earth, right? This is Earth. Like, I'm trying to find a better photo. Okay, this one. This is Earth. All of this is Earth. Like, whenever we say we occupy Earth, we don't really occupy all of it because the actual majority of the volume of Earth that Earth occupies in reality is this. The only thing that we humans occupy is this tiny, 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 tiny surface. Super tiny surface. And maybe a little bit beyond it because we are in orbit and we have the International Space Station and we have satellites and whatnot. But it's just really not that much. It's really just this. The majority of humanity is in this tiny, tiny, tiny surface, right? Just think about that. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about it? Well, hear me out. Think about it like everything that humanity knows about the universe, about reality, about everything. We know it by just being in this tiny, tiny, tiny space. Isn't that crazy? Like, we are the majority, 99% of humanity is here. Is using basically nothing of the volumetric space of Earth, and definitely nothing. It basically rounds to zero of the volumetric space of the observable universe. Just think about that. The fact that we have discovered the observable universe, which is definitely pretty big, just from this tiny utilization. Just from this tiny utilization of reality. That's crazy. Like, whenever you think about it that way, it's crazy because it's true. It is just a fact. So imagine how much more we could better understand about reality, about the universe, about ourselves, about everything, bro. if we expanded and if we occupied more volumetric space of reality. Because the majority, 99% of humanity occupies these tiny, tiny little ass volumetric space of the universe. Imagine if we occupy the volumetric space of the solar system. Obviously, all of these solar systems are not the actual scale of it. But like, just imagine if we went from here to now just utilizing more space. We will definitely have much more insights about reality, and we will definitely better understand everything. So here's the thing, and here's how it connects to adding value to humanity. If I want this, if I want to better understand reality, and I have concluded that a really good thing to do in order to better understand reality is just go towards the stars, just expand beyond Earth. Right? Another way to think about this is that we should just another way to think about this is that the universe is the answer to all the questions that we have. The universe is the answer. The entire universe is the answer towards us maximizing our understanding of reality, and therefore being way more likely to answer all the existential questions that we have of where do we come from, why are we here, what the fuck is it all about. And if the universe is the answer, then we must occupy it in order to better ask questions about the answer that is the universe. We must expand towards it. The universe, let's picture it. The universe is all of this. And all of this is the answer to all of the things we have and we want to know. We're just here. So far, we have probably answered a lot of stuff from, still nothing from Earth. If we just expand, we're better going to understand reality and everything. That being said, okay, my individual thing as an individual, because so far I have talked about humanity, which is literally encompassing billions of humans. But now going back to me as an individual, I want to better understand reality. Humanity as a whole so far has a pretty good understanding of reality for just the fact that have only been here. So if I want to better understand reality, I am incentivized for humanity to expand in order for humanity as a whole to better understand reality, and therefore to meet my objective of better understanding reality. Because if humanity better understands reality, I'm going to learn from it, and just it's like everything humanity knows so far about reality, right? There have been thousands, probably millions of individuals, pretty smart individuals working as hard as possible, in terms of science, innovation, and research and whatever to better understand reality. And then me as an individual just learns everything and obviously tries to contribute somehow, and that is the point. At the end of the day, this is something that requires a collective effort. This is like, for me, if I was able to just push humanity towards expanding, and for me to not even push humanity, maybe me, myself as an individual, just expand towards everywhere and just be in the creative mode of of Minecraft, but in the universe, and just go everywhere and just understand, that will be great. But guess what? I'm a human being. I'm not a superhuman. I'm not. I don't have any of those superpowers, unfortunately. I'm a human being, and now basing ourselves on reality, the only way and the only actual way that makes sense in order to achieve what I'm saying is for us as a collective civilization to do that together. And obviously, in a collective civilization, is not only the fact that like a collective civilization is made of individuals, and each individual has limitations. We are all humans that have limitations. Therefore, we gotta do our best based on our limitations. That's why there's division of labor. That's why there's a scientist that is just a scientist, and he's not a scientist, but on top of that, he's a fucking rocket scientist, and he's also an entrepreneur, and he's also, it's just not there. So it's something that where each individual does what it's best at, what it likes to do, and it just contributes to the entire bucket of humanity achieving that. And that's how I look at it. So as an individual, I'm like, what is the thing that I can do in order to just add to the bucket of humanity and civilization towards expanding and better understanding reality, and therefore meeting the primary objective that I just said? Well, I guess a lot of the insights come from history. So let's compare human civilization right now, 2026, compared to civilization. Let's not go back that far, like the civilization 1,000 years ago, or more than 500 years ago, like in the 1500s. In the 1500s, like if you compare civilization today to the 1500s, we are way, way, way better off in every single sense. Like we are much more healthy. Obviously, there's the argument to be made. No, there's a lot of, fat people and whatnot. But like, we're generally more healthy. We live longer and we live healthier. There's always fucking exceptions, but generally, we're healthier. We live longer, bro. At the 1500s, like the majority of people worked in agriculture. 2026, the majority of people do not work in agriculture. The majority of people work on other stuff in order where they basically create goods and services that better off humanity as a whole. That just lifts humanity as a whole. And I think that is exactly what I'm going to. You may be thinking, okay, and not only that, but also we obviously way better understand reality thanks to all the advancements in science, obviously the scientific revolution, all the advancements in science, technology, and obviously other fields. It's not only science, economics, right? We're talking about Adam Smith that proposed its wealth of nations, and basically the backbone of the majority of the most successful countries in the world in the 1770s. Like, it's not only advancements in science, like advancement in economics, blah, 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 but like, you see the pattern, you see what I'm going, right? Like, thanks to all of that, and I guess the primary two things that I have seen or that I have internalized that allowed us to way better understand reality, which is at the end of the objective I just said, right? In 2026 compared to the 1500s is technology, economics, and economics. I guess those are the two, right? There may be more that I'm missing, but at least the two that I can think about right now is that technology and economics. Technology about everything, bro. Technology for health, technology which makes us be healthier, technology for everything, for science technology, economics, and science. Yeah, they're distinct. Science, technology, and economics. Science, obviously, try to understand reality. Technology, make it easier, more efficient to better understand reality, have more leverage, more wealth, then economics, obviously better systems of the fundamental problem of economics, which was not designed by humans. It was designed by this reality, right? By God, or whatever you want to say. And why, you might be asking? Well, look, the fundamental problem of economics, the reason why economics even exists at all, is for two things, and those two things were not created by humans. They were just created by reality or God or whatever you want to believe. The first one is the fact that there's finite resources. There's finite resources in the universe. You may be thinking, whoa, in the universe there's so much. Yeah, but they're finite at the end of the day. Like, obviously, when we look at it from a planetary scale, it makes more sense, right? Oh, in Earth, there's finite resources. Obviously, like for human scale, there's a shit ton of resources. But they're finite at the end of the day. Like, the actual reality of things is that they're finite. Obviously, whenever you compare it in the human to what humanity, like towards like just the human size or human perspective, there's just a shit ton. Like, there's a shit ton of fucking resources for humanity to still go a long way and to support billions of more people on Earth. That is just reality. Stripping away all the propaganda of climate change and whatnot, which I do believe that it exists, but I also believe that there's a lot of propaganda on it that just tries to make it more extreme and whatever. Stripping all that, there's a shit ton of resources for the human perspective. But at the end of the day, those resources that there's a shit ton of are finite. Like, yeah, it's not infinite. Like, we gotta really remind ourselves of what this infinite means. Look at this thing, bro. It's just a fucking pale blue dot in a vast darkness. That is literally the representation of finite. Like, that dot. Infinite will be everywhere, but no, it's finite. In the solar system, the resources in the solar system are finite. In the galaxy are finite. Whenever you combine all the galaxies and whatnot, they're finite. That is just a reality. The second thing is the fact that humans have unlimited wants, unlimited needs. Well, a much more precise way to say it is very near unlimited needs. But they're very close to unlimited. And there's a mismatch, right? Because if let's round it up. Okay. So yeah, it's the actual precise way to say it is very near infinite wants. But let's just round it up for simplicity to infinite. So, or unlimited. So humans have unlimited needs, and you may be asking, well, why? Well, because of thousands and millions and then eventually billions of years of evolutionary biology and just human nature led us to this design of a species that just has that. We just want more and more and more and new things that that is literally based on human nature. Obviously, some people and some human beings want more things than others, but all of us want more and more and more. And that's just nature. Like, that's just our human nature. Okay? Okay, so that being said, we have a species, which is humanity, that has unlimited needs, unlimited wants, and we have reality that gives us limited resources. There's a mismatch, and there's a problem of resource allocation, and that is literally why economics exists, in order to solve that problem, which in reality doesn't have a solution. It's just what is the least worst solution, or the thing that is closest to the supposedly solution. Going back to what I was saying, economics, science, and technology I think are the primary pillars that I can think of as of right now that have essentially advanced humanity and civilization towards becoming much better in every sense. We're healthier, we live longer, we understand better, and we just better understand reality as a whole. That being said, if those three main things are the ones that really make the most amount of leverage towards humanity as a whole, getting closer to the objective that I said, which is better understanding reality, then as an individual, what do? Well, economics is literally about creating new stuff, creating wealth, like just goods and services. That's basically economics, right? Every single human on earth that adds value in somehow, that actually works and adds value somehow, they produce either a product or a service. A musician, they create products which are their songs. They also create experiences which are services which are their concerts. A much more simpler way to look at it. Apple, the founders of Apple and everyone that works in Apple produces services and products like computers, AirPods, phones. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, there's also criminals that produce drugs and they essentially add value towards something. They're obviously not good long term. I definitely don't do not agree with that. But the fact that there is a fucking transaction between the producer of the drug and the consumer means there's value. Obviously, I mean, we all know what we think about that. Like long term, that is not really good, and I generally think creates more harm than good compared to computer manufacturers or medicine manufacturers or pharmaceutical manufacturers or I don't know, food manufacturers. But you know what I mean. Everyone. So basically, I'm like, okay, as an individual, how can I contribute to the bucket of humanity in order to expand and therefore have a better understanding of reality? Well, I just said it. Economics, science, and technology are one of those things where when humanity locks in into those things, boom, new wealth is created. New wealth in terms of goods and services, and therefore humanity gets lifted up. And therefore the pie, the economic pie gets bigger, right? Gets bigger. Like it's just not fixed. The economic pie is not fixed. If that was the case, then why there's much more economic pie today than there was in the 1500s? Well, because I just said it. New creations, new goods and services, technology, science, that makes it for there to be new things, new wealth is created, new stuff is created, and therefore the economic pie grows. The economic pie is not fixed, bro. It just grows. There's certainly some professions that are dedicated to making the distribution of the economic pie more efficient, blah blah blah, like trading. But there's other professions that make it bigger. Engineers, inventors, entrepreneurs, they just create, like expand it. Whatever. What I'm saying here is, okay, how can I contribute? Because at the end of the day, everything that I have to talk about is so grandiose. But at the end of the day, I'm just a fucking human being. I'm a meatball, like everyone else in the 8 billions that are here. So how do I contribute? Well, I just said, technology in economics, which means technology and business, right? Creating the most valuable and useful goods and services through technology. And why? Well, I mean, I could have happened to like music and I could definitely do like add a lot of value through there. But I just happen to be very lucky to like technology. And the reason why I say lucky is because technology is arguably and objectively much more impactful and useful long term for humanity than music. So, the fact that I like technology and I'm also super interested in economics and just business in general makes it perfect because the things or the vehicles that me as an individual I can actually do stuff in order to basically contribute to the whole collective consciousness of humanity and there and in order to expand and basically meet this primary objective that I just said, is also happens to be something that I like. Boom, win-win situation. Now, obviously, I could be a very successful entrepreneur and technologist for the harm of humanity, but no, that doesn't make any sense, bro. How am I gonna harm humanity if that just makes it worse? If what I want is for more humanity to exist, for more consciousness to be expanded, and for humanity to reach newer heights, colonize the solar system, eventually colonize the galaxy, and just better understand reality and better understand what the fuck is happening, why will I harm it? That doesn't make any sense. So obviously there's people and there's entrepreneurs that harm it, like criminal gangs with drugs and whatnot. But there's other people that also make it better, try to make it better with goods and services that are trying to be as impactful and as useful as possible towards that. Elon Musk is a good example. Whether you like him or hate him, he is undoubtedly creating companies, goods and services that make us get into that expansion of humanity towards the stars and just have a better understanding of reality. And that's why there's a connection between adding as much value as possible to just better understand reality. Maybe I didn't explain it in the best way, but that is just the actual reasoning that I can explain as of right now. It's definitely not the best explanation. I gotta iterate on it, but those are the ideas. And yeah, that is essentially my thing. Oh, that was my answer towards my friends. My friends at the end of my answer were so bored. Nah, I'm just kidding. I just really gotta refine it. But yeah, that is essentially my answer. Oh my god, there's a spider there. That is my answer. Now, I was obviously thinking about this and I was like, okay, obviously, humanity has already gone a long way, as I said. Humanity has already gone a long way. We have already understood a significant amount, and we still have a way long to go in order to get closer to what I just said, which is better understand reality. But so far, we have done not in a bad, like, we're so far so good. So basically, the way in which I want to dedicate the majority of my time in my lifetime is not only to contribute and add value to humanity and whatnot, which is obviously what I just said and the reasoning of why, but also, well, through goods and services, through technology and and businesses and whatnot, but also, yeah, through goods and services, businesses, technology that makes us get closer towards that. But also, I just gotta learn what already there is, because like from the entire history of humanity, we have already definitely gone a long way, as I said in the beginning, comparing ourselves to the fact that in this very little tiny volumetric space, we already know everything that we know about. And that is definitely progress. It's definitely not the progress that gets us super close, like we're like nothing compared to all the potential that we have. But it's definitely something. It's better. It's definitely better than 5,000 years ago, which was when civilizations and humanity as we know it started, with the first writing of this ancient Sumerians in Mesopotamia, in ancient Mesopotamia. But like from that point towards now, there's definitely a better understanding of reality. And I was like, okay, not only I want to add value through products and services, technology and whatnot in order to get us closer to that, but I also want to understand what has already been understood, what has already been studied, what is already known collectively. And that's what I'm saying, collectively. Like humanity already knows that collectively. It's already stored somewhere. That's knowledge that is already known, has already been tested. But me as an individual, I don't have it. So I think I'm gonna dedicate my life to exactly that. Like not learning what is already there, and obviously keeps expanding, fortunately, and whatnot. But at least learning the fundamentals and the foundations of what's already there, of what's already understood, of the timeless truths that have already been discovered, learned, whatnot, and studied. And at the same time, like just be the man of action in order to just grow the economic pie, like just create new goods and services that just get us closer to that. And that, from my reasoning, is the most realistic way for me to get towards this fucking objective and just purpose of life. That, from my from right now, from my own reasoning, from my that is the thing that I have found to be the most realistic way to do it. Because as I said, it will be incredible for me to just have superpowers and just travel through space and just boom, but it's not possible. I can't. So that's the things that I like after really thinking about it. Those are the ideas and the things that I should do that in a realistic way can get us, not only get me, because at the end of the day the objective is individual, but also humanity, um, get us closer to that. And the reason why I say humanity, you may be thinking, well, this is your thing. Why do you want to impose your ideas to humanity? I mean, here's the thing. I genuinely think that the majority of humans, I genuinely think that every single human has that in deep inside of them. The way I look at it is this: we, as I said, every single human has inside of them all the insights from evolutionary biology and whatnot. And therefore, thanks to that, every single human wants to socialize, every single human has curiosity somehow. But I think every single human has it. The difference is not whether you have it or not, is the actual variables and the actual settings. Because, for example, if you think about an explorer, for example, the explorers that discovered, the European explorers that discovered the Americas in the age of explorations, which were primarily Spaniards and Portuguese, I don't know how to say it, from Portugal, they definitely had their level of curiosity and exploration much more higher than, I don't know, someone that just didn't care about that. But the one that didn't care about that, he still had it. He still had a level of curiosity and exploration. But compared to the explorers, it's not the same. Or someone that is pretty social versus someone that is not. The someone that is not is still social, right? He still wants to talk to someone, or whatever, or he still has the urge, even if subconsciously. And the other one simply went fully on it, or yeah, that's the way I see it. So that's why I don't think it's imposing my things into people. I think that's something that it is intrinsic to the human. Just know what's out there. Always just learn. Just have that curiosity. In my case, the settings are maxed up in that way compared to a musician, because a musician doesn't really care that much. I mean, yeah, he questions some, but like he just cares about music. So yeah, I think everyone has it. That's why I don't think it's just imposing my beliefs in there. I generally think that what I'm talking about and my objectives and whatever is something that everyone has, obviously at different levels. In my case, they are optimized at a certain configuration and levels that makes me have that primary purpose in life. So yeah, that's what I can say about it. And I was actually wondering, okay, from humanity's current knowledge and understanding of reality, how can we categorize everything? Because I have always encountered in life moments where I just learned something new and I wonder, is there a way in which we can just map all human knowledge so that whenever I learn something new, I'm no longer confused, like, oh, I don't know where to put this. But if we have something, sort of a map, sort of a, yeah, map of knowledge, whenever I learn something new, I'm like, oh, this goes here. Oh, this goes there. Boom, boom. You know what I mean? And I certainly found that 2 years ago, but it was fully focusing on technology and science. So I categorized and I just basically was like, okay, mathematics, computer science, physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. But then you always encounter things throughout your life based on the experiences that you have that, yeah, a lot of them fit in there, but a lot of other, it just doesn't fit in there, right? Like at the end of the day, there's emergence properties, bro. Like, yeah, physics can't understand absolutely everything at the foundations, but there's emergent properties that require new type of study and understanding. Yeah, you can understand certainly everything that is going on in my body from physics at a very fundamental level, right? All the molecules, all the fucking atoms, everything, blah 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 blah, the quantum mechanics, blah blah blah. But then, whenever you combine those parts, there's new properties that emerge that weren't there. That is literally the concept of emergence. That the sum of its parts create a new property that was not there before. You separate the sum of things, that property no longer exists. You combine it, and that new property arrives. And I guess we humans are a good example, right? We're at the end of the day we're made of trillion. I don't know. I think it's trillions of cells, right? And whenever you separate cells, they're like, oh, okay. But whenever you combine them in what we are, this thing that is pretty special emerges. Same with intelligence, and I genuinely think this, but this is something completely different because we're talking about consciousness, intelligence, blah blah blah. I think the most logical argument for me, or the most logical argument of what is really intelligence. Hear me out. I'm not saying this is the answer. Nobody knows the answer so far, but from what I have heard so far, the thing that makes much more sense to me is that intelligence and consciousness and all of this is just an emergent property. You have a fucking, neuron, and there's no consciousness in that neuron. There's nothing, right? But if you combine billions of neurons in a certain way and structure and whatever, you all of a sudden have new emergent properties like intelligence and what we call intelligence, or what we call consciousness. Whatever, that is a topic for another very interesting video. But the thing that I'm trying to tell you here, or the point that I'm trying to make is that emergence is real. And based on that fact, you cannot understand everything just with physics. So, because as I just said, emergence is real. Like, there's a reason of why there's a separation of physicists, biologists, chemists, or people in chemistry, psychologists. Like, you cannot understand everything with physics because they're just, I mean, yeah, you understand the foundations of all of that other stuff, but whenever you combine those foundations into certain ways, new properties emerge that you just need new reasoning methods, new knowledge type of, new reasoning methods to understand those new properties, right? And I was wondering, okay, based on that fact, is there a map where I'm able to better assign everything that comes through life, throughout all the experiences, through the rest of my life, and therefore better understand reality? Oh yeah, as I said, 2 years ago I was like, yeah, but it was fully on science. Whenever something emerges whenever something comes to my, I learn about something and it's like, oh, this is about psychology. Yeah, you might know physics, but it's just not compatible, as I said, because of emergence. Whatever, I already explained that. That being said, I built kind of a map that is close to this. It's not really complete, and it's also maybe missing a lot of parts, but it definitely gave me a little bit more clarity around things, and I want to show it to you, or to whoever is watching. Here it is. Look. So now here's the thing. Before I show it, this map was bigger, but this map is the things that I generally want to learn from. Okay. Now before you tell me you're crazy, you're never gonna learn everything, I agree with you. That's why I'm interested in learning the foundations, the fundamentals. Cause bro, let me actually get into the map. Let's talk about biology, for example. In order for you to understand everything about biology, it's gonna take you your entire life. Why? Because the field is always improving. Each one of these fields are always improving. They're always adding new knowledge and whatnot. That's why my objective with this is learn the foundations, the basics. Well, not the very basics, because that is very basic, but like good enough. Like, I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is like better understanding than 90% of people. But obviously not like at that point, yeah, you have better understanding about each one of the fields better than 90% of people, but you still will never have enough understanding compared to someone that just fully dedicates his life to one field. That being said, these are the things that I have identified. It's obviously not a complete map because some of the things I was more interested in others. This is at least the map that I'm interested in. Okay, that is a very important difference. Like I'm interested in. The actual map might be much bigger, but these are just things that are more that I'm interested in. And obviously, I just try to, for example, in the applied fields, I just try to really obviously, for each one of these things, there's a lot of branches, like in anything. So I just try to really get into the most compressed way. Whatever. We start with the formal systems. The formal systems, right? Which is basically the languages in order to understand a lot of these. The ones that I'm interested in, that I happen to have, is mathematics and computer science. Mathematics, by the way, I'm already studying it. I'm restudying it from zero because I didn't learn it really well on school. There was a lot of memorization, so right now I'm literally relearning it from zero, from arithmetic all the way to calculus, with a focus on understanding. I'm about to enter calculus, so I'm about to achieve that, and obviously beyond that, I'm gonna continue. Whatever, computer science, obviously. Yeah. Now, what about the physical universe, right? Which, as it says, is all of space and time. In this case, I had physics, obviously, chemistry, astronomy and cosmology, and yeah, so far. Then planetary and geosciences, one planet at a time. Okay, before I was putting it like Earth, but I just realized that, I mean, I want to learn about more about planets, more planets. And I guess the rule of thumb for me, obviously, there's a lot of planets, bro. I don't know how much there's probably billions of known. I'm talking about of the observable universe, of the known universe. There's probably billions. I don't even know, maybe trillions of planets. So I'm obviously not gonna dedicate my life to that. So I was like, okay, what is the most immediate type of like volumetric space that we can reach? As I said, the solar system. So when I say this is basically very interested in learning how like learning about everything that we know about all the planets in the solar system. That's it. Now that they discover a new planet in another galaxy. Oh, interesting. But like, I'm not gonna fucking get into study all of it. Like, the ones that I think make sense to study for me is just the foundations of how these planets work on the solar system, because that's the most that's the closest terms of volume of the universe that we can literally colonize first, so therefore more relevant. You know, like the moon, which is the one that we're going to get first, then Mars, whatnot, you know. So yeah, basically understanding the foundations of the solar system, not only the planets but also the space between the solar system, because the space between the solar system also has interesting properties. But only about the solar system, like actually dedicating time to study the foundations, only the solar system for now. At the end of the day, astronomy and cosmology is still gonna really make me understand a lot about the universe, but it's obviously not all of it, whatever. Then we get into life, all Earth life, and yeah, in here, yeah, all Earth life, because like significant life we haven't really found in other planets. So far, I'm just gonna be about all Earth life. Biology, evolutionary biology. I'm super interested in evolutionary biology. Okay, now we get into the mind, which, as it says, many species of Earth, but it's mostly human. In this case, we're talking about neuroscience, psychology, very interested in that. And then we get into society. As you can clearly see the stepping ladders of emergence. You have the physical universe where all of this relies on, but then the combination of those things leads to interesting things that emerge, like planets, and then life in planets like Earth, and then within that life, you know, intelligence, the mind, blah blah blah. Many species, but mostly human. And then within humans, anthropology, economics, history, geography, and then from that, culture and meaning, and then from that, you know what I mean? Whatever. Now about society, which is obviously human only. Anthropology, economics. I mean, economics, I'm already studying it, so I'm already covering this. History, I'm certainly already studying it in a way. Geography, demography, pretty interesting, all of this. Anthropology, let me just remember what was that. Anthropology, from what I remember, is the study of humanity. And how do you anthropology? Anthropology is the holistic study of humanity. Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff I didn't really knew the formal definition, but once I saw it, I was like, that makes sense. Like, for example, anthropology, I was like, I thought it was something else, but then I saw the definition, and it's literally the study of humanity. And to me, it makes sense, right? If I want to be useful to humanity, if I want to be useful to humanity, I mean, it's not necessary, but it's certainly much more helpful to understand humanity if you want to be helpful for it. It's like if you want to help a patient, but you don't really know anything about the patient. Whatever, maybe it's not the best analogy, but at least that's the way I think about it. geography, demography, and then that emerges into culture and meaning, which is obviously human only too. Things like philosophy. Oof, philosophy is so interesting. Music. And why music? You may be thinking, what the hell are you talking about? Well, this is more of a personal thing. Like, I have always enjoyed music, and if I am able to study music, because also want to eventually create, like, just do music, and just as a hobby, if I'm being honest, but like a serious hobby, because there's hobbies where you just do it for yourself. In my case, that will be a hobby that I generally want people to just know about, like listen to my music and whatnot. And obviously, I'm not gonna dedicate my entire life to music. Like, my entire life is, I already said, is gonna be through building goods and services through technology that get us closer to expanding towards the solar system, I guess. And not only to expand towards solar system, but better understanding reality, and I don't know, maybe just becoming better, right? Becoming much healthier, much more productive, like whatever. Yeah, much more efficient. Then religion and theology, that is a really interesting one to me, because it's literally one of those things where humanity has, for its entire history, at least for entire 5,000 known history of humanity, since the first writing of ancient Sumerians in ancient Mesopotamia. That's interesting. Like, I was reading a book of history that it was basically talking about the civilization and whatnot, and the first known, like, yeah, the ancient Sumerians, right, which were basically like the first official civilization. A lot of, I mean, they invented a lot of things. They invented like writing and whatnot, and they also had a lot of things about religion. So that's what I'm saying. Like, for thousands of years, humanity has always tried to get meaning from all of these questions, bro. At the end of the day, what I'm saying, if said, like, my philosophy or the way I see the world is certainly also a religion in a certain way. It's not the same, because I really base myself primarily through science and just through objective things, compared to, I don't know, Christianity or Islam. But I'm super interested in learning about the religions, the main religions, because the fact that they have the fact that they influence billions of people is just so interesting to me, and I just really want to know what is their perspective on the meaning, right, of life, right? At the end of the day, a big part of what of my objective is exactly that. Trying to understand reality is also trying to just understand where we come from, why are we here, what happens after death. There's those all of those things I just said are certainly things that are certainly branch out from the primary thing that I have. So religion and theology, I just really want to understand what has humanity thought so far about it. Now we get into applied fields, and the reason why make the distinction is because, if we are being completely honest, the majority of this is just theoretical and it's obviously super helpful. But applied fields is what gets us to actually not only understanding the reality, but also bending reality to our will. And this is big, especially, well, this is big for me in terms of actually building products and services that gets us closer to what I just said and just makes us better in general. So yeah, in here we obviously have engineering, computer science, which is certainly there, which, but in here is more about applied computer science, things like software engineering, whatever. AI. I'm actually going to study artificial intelligence in my in university, so that's gonna be helpful. Mechatronics. I want to study mechatronics so badly. Medicine. This one is interesting. Medicine is interesting because as I said, the majority of these I want to generally study the foundations. And let's be honest, there's gonna be certain areas where I actually know more than others. That's just reality. Like, for example, I'm certainly gonna know way more about engineering than medicine. But as I said, the baseline of all of this is just the foundations. That's it. The foundations. Just the foundations. With the foundations, you understand these things better than 90% of people, and it's just good enough in order for you to also have certainly insights between areas, which that is also pretty interesting. When you know about biology and also about computer science, you can essentially connect them, have new insights from both of them, from the combination of them. So all of this, the majority of all of this is just the foundations. Whatever, it's just a reminder. But the ones that I think I'm actually gonna spend more time into beyond the foundations are gonna be this. This, because I'm gonna be a lot into it, right? At the end of the day, the whole thing that I said of adding value to humanity. That also, whenever you add value to humanity, whenever you do companies, whenever you build companies, whenever you create goods and services, you also learn stuff. Even if you are primarily applying stuff, you're still learning from experience, and that is still learning for all of this, or for the things that I'm gonna, you know what I mean, right? So yeah, medicine, yeah, it's foundations, right? And health and longevity. You may be thinking, well, health and longevity is a branch from this, but now that I have thought about it, I mean, yeah, it's starting to converge. At the end of the day, medicine emerged because you have a problem, you are sick, we must address that you're sick, and this one is more about preventing being sick. Fortunately, based on the fact that economics, technology actually works, we have now come to a civilization that no longer needs to just like repair the things that appear of sickness, but we have come to a significant advancement where you can just actually start to prevent it. And medicine, I mean, right now, as of 2026, a lot of medicine is still diagnosing disease, something that you already have, and then fixing it. But it's starting to merge to something like this. At the end of the day, health and longevity is just taking, the science from this medicine and just starting to apply to prevent disease and just try to maximize your longevity, but I guess more importantly, health span. Because you can live a long life, but live it in a poorly way, or you can live also a long life in the best way. That is health span, whatever. Yeah, this is definitely developing, and eventually, I think in 15 years from now, these are just gonna merge, and that is great because we're gonna pass from medicine just being something where it's like, oh, you're sick, and boom, to actually preventing the sickness. Whatever. As you can clearly see, I'm very optimistic. Architecture and urban planning, I have always been so interested in this. So yeah, pretty interested. Oof, education and pedagogy, bro. This is crazy because with this, not only you are better able to fucking explain and help other people learn, which is certainly something pretty cool to be a teacher, but also to better understand, to better learn yourself. Like the fact that if you study this, you're gonna better. If you study this, you will be better able to then study everything else because you're literally studying how to learn, how to better learn stuff. And whenever you go from not knowing how to better learn stuff to now having the insights of how to better learn stuff, everything else, which is learning everything else, becomes more efficient, better, blah, blah, blah. So this is a big one. This is, I guess, mandatory as much as math and whatever. Design. I'm really interested in design. I've always been into that. So I guess certainly a much more formal way to study the foundationals of this might be cool. Commerce and finance, true, also too. Agriculture, okay, this one, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there were certainly much more fucking things that from the map. These are the only things that I found actually to be like, I will actually dedicate time to studying the foundations of it. And that's why I keep repeating foundations because I don't really want to enclose the rest of my life to study this, bro. I just want to study the foundations, understand it better than 90% of people, and just do something useful with it. And also generally meet my curiosity because this is not only about doing something useful, but it's also about just a better understanding reality. Primary objective. Now, what do we have here? Cross-cutting disciplines. Okay, as its name implies, these are cross-cutting disciplines. Systems theory and cybernetics, how systems work. This is pretty useful, I guess, for obviously building systems, building solutions, but also building companies, building the systems, the machines that builds the machines. That's also a way to put it. Game theory. This is so interesting. This is actually a branch from mathematics, but it's so interesting. Let me actually pull up the actual definition because I don't have it on the top of my head. What the heck? Oh, My questions. What does game theory study? Shit. No, I don't get the AI. Okay, here it is. Game story is the mathematical study of strategic decision making where the outcome for each participant depends entirely on the choices of everyone else. What? No, that is theory. I mean, yeah, that is certainly a definition, but I found another one that it analyzes how interacting participants choose strategies to maximize their outcomes, accounting for the choices and anticipated reactions of others. I don't find the specific definition that I found, but yeah, this is basically a way to say it. Pretty interesting too. Let me get rid of this. Complexity and chaos theory. Interesting. Cognitive science, interesting. Environmental science, interesting. Data science, interesting. Yeah, this is the ones that I have found interesting that I'm generally going to study. Right now, I'm currently studying this, and this. Once I finish with the foundations, the next step, I'm gonna go with this, physics, and this. I don't know, I really need to think about the actual planning, because obviously I cannot study all of them at the same time, it's just impossible. But I just really need to be very mindful. Like right now, I'm studying 3 at once: mathematics, CS, and economics. Mathematics every day. I'm just interlapping between CS and economics, and it's actually working pretty well. So I guess 3 at a time, right? And it's the foundations, as I said, so it's not really gonna take me crazy 10 years, bro. I don't know how much it's gonna take me, but at least the foundations is definitely gonna take me less than 10 years to get all of this. Well, no, maybe more, like less than 20 years, certainly. But yeah, I'm just starting with the most foundationals and the most important ones, I guess, which is, or the most interesting ones. Like, it's just a combination of variables, right? Most important ones for my objective, also most interesting to me, the ones that are most interesting to me, and whatnot. That combination gives me studying mathematics, CS, AI, computer science, I already had it in here, economics, history, physics, chemistry, and then I will see how do I prioritize each one of these. But I just really wanted to make this video. I don't know, I just really wanted to get all my thoughts into a computer. Maybe someone watches this and has some good insights. Hopefully it helps you if you watch this video to better understand whatever questions you were having. Or maybe it is just my future self that wants to see how handsome I was 20 years ago. I'm just kidding. See, I don't know, man. I just wanted to put it out there and hope whoever you are, if you are an alien, if you are a human 5,000, that is 5,000 years ahead of 2026, if you are me from the future, if you're a stranger that I don't know, whoever you are, I don't care. Hopefully you're having an excellent moment in time, and hopefully this was helpful and valuable in some way.